Good morning. It is Thursday, May 21st, 2020. I'm Keith Tebow. Thank you for joining us on what looks like it's going to be a pretty sunny and very mild Thursday morning and Thursday overall. It is Thursday morning at 9:30, and that has been our traditional time where we have been able to catch up with the mayor of the city of Fall River, Mayor Paul Coogan. Mayor, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Keith. Thanks.
I guess the big news this week is Governor Baker announced on Monday the plans for the Commonwealth in terms of reopening the state to businesses. A couple of weeks ago, he announced there would be a 4-phase plan, and he laid out a lot of what would be part of phase 1 this week. Let me just ask you in general, Mayor, what do you think of the governor's proposals? And in terms of local businesses, how do you think the city will fare?
We'll fare fine. It's just it's going to come out piecemeal. So people that are looking for things to be back to normal, it's going to be 4, 8, maybe 12 weeks before all those phases get through. So we have work to do. I'm glad to see that some of the beauty shops will be opening. I think the marijuana business will be opening for takeout service. There are things happening. Government Center, of course, will be trying to find a way to accommodate the public, but I can assure you that takes up a lot of our time whenever we try to open anything.
Well, let me ask you about Government Center. The last time we had spoken about, the closing of Government Center was that May 18th date. What's the status of maybe reopening Government Center in some way, shape, or form? And how will that translate to other elements like libraries and maybe even further down the line, senior centers?
Well, senior centers will probably be a while. Library is one of the phases. I'm not sure if it's 2 or 3, so we have time on both of those. Government center people have been asking us, particularly related to building permits and like marriage licenses and things like that. As you know, this week we kicked off our partnership with Bay Coast Bank. There are 5 branches in the city. People can pay a parking ticket, their excise bills, their tax bills, get a receipt, pay cash at any one of the branches. It also gives them the opportunity to pay their bills on a Saturday morning, which I think is tremendously convenient for people that can't always get down to Government Center and may want to pay cash. So that partnership, I think, is going to help us to eliminate some of the public in the building. I also think that yesterday we had a meeting about building permits online, finding a way to streamline the process for marriage licenses, and then have someone come into the lobby and sign their license in front of a witness. There are things we're doing to try to still minimize traffic throughout the building, get more of our staff back in here over time, and make sure we're doing everything we can to make city services convenient for the residents.
Do you have a timeline in mind and when you may want to try to reopen some of the offices there where more people can flow in, or is that something that you're working with the team?
We did. We had 2 meetings already this week on opening. I think I want to say I was looking at the end of next week, but I think that might be a little too aggressive. I think it might be the following week. We'll start bringing people in on a limited basis for certain departments. I think that's how we can do it, to make sure that, we're doing all the things we can to keep all of our staff safe. I think we looked at something very similar to, as you enter the building, your temperature's taken, you wash your hands with sanitizer, you have a mask on, you go to your office. People will notice as they come into the building a lot more plexiglass shields. And again, that's supposed to keep the public safe and the employees. They'll see some changes. We're trying to minimize it so it doesn't look like everything's in upheaval, but at the same time, we want people to be safe. We want people that work here to know that the residents that are coming in have at least been checked out and they do have a mask on. So there's things we're doing to make sure we have a good place for people to work and where we can cater to the public.
I want to get back to the business openings. One of the things that's maybe unique to Fall River, unlike some of the other communities in the Commonwealth, is that there appear to be different rules for some of these openings between Massachusetts and nearby Rhode Island. Obviously, we have access to Tiverton right over the state line. Has that been an issue in terms of some businesses that may be opening a little earlier in Rhode Island and not Massachusetts? Could that be a problem for either some businesses mentioning that to you, or maybe, a lot more people either way
Right.
crossing borders?
Well, one of the biggest businesses that's still closed, and and as you just said, people go back and forth to eat in Tiverton or Newport, are our restaurants. I had a long conversation with Lieutenant Governor Polito about that. I know they were going to be opened in phase 2, but again, I'm hoping that she took to heart what we in Fall River were telling her. I know a number of people talked to her and understood that, if people can't go out to eat in Fall River or even go out to dine outside with the restrictions, they're going to go over the border into Rhode Island and hit those restaurants. So we brought that up to her. She said her working group was still aggressively studying the restaurant issue, and she hoped to have something done before phase 2. So that would be one of the things I would like to see done, directly related to what you're speaking of, Keith. People going back and forth across the border, and going out to eat. We'd like to keep that tax revenue in Fall River and get people from Rhode Island coming over here to eat. We need the money, so we have to try to compete on some kind of a level field. So let's see how that goes. That's one of the biggest ones. I know there's talk about the casinos, the marijuana business, so people will be coming from Rhode Island. So there's going to be a back and forth across the border, and we just have to work together to make sure everybody's safe.
Another item that I want to bring up is you had mentioned this week, I believe, during a city council meeting and updating councilors that CERTA is going to be doing more, and I guess transit is part of this opening as well. What do you know about CERTA and what they're going to be doing here locally for meeting the transportation needs?
I'm not sure specifically. Before this COVID hit, we had talked about Sunday service with CERTA. I know they received, I was given a press release for $21 million in CARES money. That seems like a lot of money for bus service around Southeastern Regional Transit Authority's area. And I'm hoping that maybe we can do our Sunday runs and maybe some extended service at night for residents and get that going, plus additional cleaning of the buses and making sure they're fogging them and all the rails are clean. That's what that would be my hope. I have not talked to CERTA yet, even about where their money's going. I did receive the press release, and I think that's a good thing for Southeastern Mass that we're getting a bump there, and hopefully that'll help us streamline some cleaning procedures for those buses and get some service going.
All right. Speaking of numbers of the week, it looks like the city has had some highs and lows in terms of its number of cases. We had over almost 38 or so a couple of days ago. Yesterday was a good day, 11 cases. What are you hearing from the state in terms of where we stand in terms of ebbs and flows? I know we've sort of still been higher on some levels in terms of the rest of the Commonwealth.
Yeah, I do look at the numbers every day. I think we're on this pendulum that goes up and down. As you know, I think last week we had a really bad day. I thought that was due to some delays in reporting, but 38 the other day, again, in my discussions with the people down in the Department of Health, was a lot of nursing homes. They're still one of our major priorities and focus in Fall River, is trying to keep a handle on making sure people are safe in all of our nursing homes. But yesterday was just a low day. I mean, we haven't had a fatality in 2 or 3 days, which is good news. And again, the more testing, traditionally, the higher the numbers are. But even the testing swinging up and down. I saw 7,000 tests one day, 11,000 the other. So they're on a swing also. It's a very tough number to get a handle on. I don't think, people say, well, that's not everybody in the city that's positive. They're 100% correct. No one's saying that. And when you look at a number like we have now, over 1,000, simply go back to my reports or my little posts to May 1. You can safely assume in almost all cases, everyone from May 1 back has cleared, or there's something extraordinary going on with them in the illness. Most people clear in 10 to 14 days. So that number, that when you post a number like 1,000, that doesn't mean there's 1,000 positive cases walking around Fall River. That means 1,000 people from March or whenever we started doing this have tested positive. I think we had our first case in February, but that's since then, I can assure you that mostly everybody in March, mostly everybody in April has already been cleared, and a lot of them I know some of them, they've returned to work. They feel okay now. They may be a little rocky, but they're no longer considered positive. And that's what happens. You look at those numbers and you think, oh God, look, 1,000 people in Fall River sick. That's just not accurate. People are coming off that as fast as we're adding new ones on.
Yeah, that is sort of a disparity between things. I know the state was reporting you were getting numbers in terms of people who are cleared, and you're not getting those any longer. Is
No,
that correct?
I don't. I think they don't. I don't think they like to give those numbers. I don't know why. It's something that's a little bit uplifting for the people. They want to know, hey, where is the status on these people? And again,
Right.
when you look at fatalities in the South Coast area, regretfully, we have 22 of them, but that's not close to the numbers of other communities down this way. Yeah. And it's to our benefit, obviously, but we don't. I always say one is too many. So what are you going to do? Right. But at the same point, I looked at Brockton's numbers this morning. They're at 3,700 positive cases, and there are over 150 people that passed away. It's a different battle up there.
Yeah. A couple of non-COVID-19 items, if I could, this week. First of all, I know when we spoke a couple of weeks ago about the new police chief, Chief Cardoza, that his nomination was supposed to be before the city council this week. It wasn't. Was there a hang-up in his contract? What was that delay?
It was a hang-up. I'll be honest with you. There was a part of every police contract that we're trying to give what I call a clean contract, so that people know what the responsibilities are and what they're being paid. But there are some state regulations or laws that also apply to all contracts, and one of them was a provision called the Heart Bill. It kind of made us go back and look at that one part of it. I can assure you there is nothing wrong with the contract. I talked to the city council president the other day. It's sitting on my desk. It's done. We're ready to move forward. It's just I would call those technical glitches going forward. They're things that both the city attorney and Captain, or soon-to-be Chief Cardoza's attorney, worked out, and it was never a point of disagreement. It was a point of how can we make sure we cover this. It wasn't anything about money or vacation or anything. It was just making sure technically we have the contract right.
All right. And finally, we get the long holiday weekend, the unofficial beginning of summer. City's still continuing with its plans in terms of a special parade on Memorial Day. Give us a little update on how that's going to work for people who haven't heard.
I got it on my desk. I meant to bring it over, Keith, but it's going to be a rolling parade which goes around, loops around the city, down Eastern Avenue, and goes back down the South End and does one loop of the city. No one's getting out of the cars except at the memorials where we're going to put a wreath. One person will get out and put a wreath. There will be no congregating beforehand or afterwards. When we're done, you drive home. I think it's something that goes on many, many weekends in Fall River. We all see these motorcycle groups coming by 200-300 strong. They don't have a parade permit per se. They just go out for a ride together. I think it's going to be something very similar to that. They do a loop of the city. I know there were some concerns about people and social distancing. We respectfully ask all of our residents to keep social distance amongst themselves. You can move down the street or give yourself some space. It's a great day to honor all of our veterans of all the services. They're the only reason we're allowed to do this is because of their sacrifices and what they've done for this country. And again, it is a time of caution for all of us. But if we do this the wise way, we'll be fine. Just people have to be smart. Use your head. Hopefully, it's a nice day. Give us a wave as we go by, and hopefully, we'll get out of this COVID thing. We can honor our veterans, have a little fun, and work our way towards the end of this crisis.
Is there going to be any monitoring at all by the police department in terms of people maybe congregating as the rolling parade comes by their neighborhood?
Right. We do have a few detail officers that are going to help us. Their responsibility is to make sure that that people are trying to maintain social distancing, especially There was some concern about the lineup before the parade and the lineup after. As far as the public on the streets, we look at that as if a family went to the park. It's funny. We got a call the other day that a family was at the dog park, and people were sitting together, but it was a family of four. They drove together there. So, I mean, it looks like people aren't social distancing to the naked eye, but in effect, they all drove there in their Volkswagen. So, I mean, what are we going to do? That's a family. They live in the same house together. They go to the park together. You drive by and you say, look at these four people. They're on top of each other. They're a family. It's very tough to police sometimes, believe me.
Well, Mayor Coogan, as always, I appreciate your time. And before we leave, nice tie. We're pretty close this week.
I just
We
want
didn't
everyone
coordinate
to
this at
know,
all.
I want everyone to know I gave Keith a great site to buy what I call cheap ties. And he told me he has about 500 ties, so he's not worried about cheap ties. But
Yeah, I don't wear them as much as I used to now that I'm doing remote work. All right, Mayor, thanks as always. We'll talk again next week. Take care.
thank you, Keith. I appreciate it. And have a nice Memorial Day, everybody.
Thank you. All right. Thanks to Mayor Paul Coogan for joining us again this week. We will talk with him again next Thursday at 9:30 a.m. to get an update on not only the COVID-19 issues, but also other items that are impacting the city of Fall River. I want to thank you for joining us today. We will talk again soon. Have a great day, everyone.